It looks like we are now at quorum. The time is 1:05, and we're going to begin. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. We'd like to get started, and we are beginning the Assembly Bill 32 Environmental Justice Advisory Committee public meeting. Welcome. My name is Jane Harrington from Leading Resources, and I'm the facilitator for today's meeting. I am excited to be with you all here today. To get started, I will cover some housekeeping and logistics. Spanish interpretation will be provided in the Zoom Spanish channel for the duration of the meeting. We have 2 interpreters with us today to help us with that. For those here in the building, restrooms are outside the door and to the left and down the hall by the drinking fountains. In case of an emergency, please exit out the door and to the right down the stairs. We will have some public comment periods today. For members of the public participating remotely, you will be able to raise your hand in Zoom to speak. When it's your turn, the host will ask you to unmute. After you click on the unmute button from your end, you can begin to speak. We appreciate you staying on mute until it is your turn to speak. In the event that *6 does not work to unmute, we can try and unmute you on our end. We will be switching off between public commenters who are in the room and those on Zoom. For all public commenters, a few requests. Before your question or comment, please state your name and affiliation, if applicable, so that we know who is speaking. We'll also do our best in the room to state our name and affiliation for members of the public to know who is talking in the room. Please limit your comments to that agenda item. We do have a general public comment period at the end of the meeting. We intend to give each commenter 3 minutes to speak, and we'll let you know if we have to change that based on the volume of comments we might be expecting. And while EJAC welcomes your comments, committee members will not be responding to public comment. Zoom Q&A and chat functions are turned off for participants. And now I'd like to introduce our Spanish interpreter that is on the line in the main channel. Grisel, if you could please introduce yourself and translate the information on this slide.
Of course. Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Grisel Villafaña. Soy una de las intérpretes para el día de hoy. Va a haber una etapa de comentarios públicos. Si gusta participar en Zoom, puede levantar la mano. Los participantes que se conecten por teléfono pueden marcar gato 2 para poder levantar la mano. Y a las personas se les va a informar cuando hayan activado su sonido, y también pueden marcar *6 para poder silenciar o reactivar el sonido. También, en caso de no ser posible, se va a tratar de activar su micrófono de este lado para que puedan entonces participar.
Thank you. For those who are participating in person in the room, to prevent echoes, the easiest way to do that is simply to not join the audio. So we request that you click on the symbol next to the unmute button as seen in item number 1 on the screen, and then after that, select Leave Computer Audio as seen in item number 2. Also, please make sure to stay muted for the full duration of the meeting to avoid background noise. Grisel, please provide the translated information on this slide.
Para las personas que están participando en la sala, para tratar de prevenir ecos, la manera más sencilla de poderlo hacer es eligiendo no conectarse al audio en Zoom. Entonces solicitamos que le den clic al símbolo que está al lado de su micrófono. Ahí van a poder ver una flechita que, si le dan clic, va a darles la opción para dejar el audio de la computadora, como se ve en el punto número 2 en la pantalla. También les pedimos que mantengan su micrófono silenciado durante toda la reunión para poder evitar que haya sonido de fondo o ruido de fondo y se produzca un eco.
Next, we'll provide instructions, and then we will enable the Zoom interpretation features. When the interpretation globe appears at the bottom right corner of Zoom, as seen in item number 1, please choose your preferred language as English or Spanish, as seen in item number 2. Grisel, please provide these instructions.
Procederemos entonces a habilitar la función de interpretación en Zoom. En el momento de que se haya activado la función, va a aparecer un icono como un globo terráqueo en la parte inferior de su pantalla, como se ve en el punto número 1, y ahí también puede seleccionar su idioma de preferencia, ya sea inglés o español, como se ilustra en el número 2.
Thank you. If for any reason you require technical Zoom support in today's meeting, please contact CARB staff Christabel, who is in person here in Sacramento, by the email provided on this slide. We will do our best to assist you. Today's meeting is being recorded. CARB staff will post to the EJAC Meetings and Events website in the coming weeks the recording for that. This is the same website where you can find all materials for today's meeting as provided on this slide. Giselle, could you please provide these instructions in Spanish?
Of course. Si por alguna razón requiere algún tipo de ayuda técnica en Zoom en la reunión del día de hoy, por favor contacte al personal de CARB, Cristabel, que está aquí en la sala de forma presencial en Sacramento, y por email la puede contactar en el correo electrónico que aparece en la diapositiva. Vamos a hacer nuestro mejor esfuerzo para ayudarle. Esta reunión está siendo grabada y también se va a publicar en el sitio web de EJAC para reuniones y eventos en las próximas semanas. Entonces la grabación va a estar ahí. También es el mismo sitio web en donde puede encontrar los materiales para la reunión de hoy, como las diapositivas, entre otros materiales. Gracias and thank you.
Thank you. With that, I would like to begin the EJAC member roll call. As a reminder, this is the formal record of meeting attendance, and therefore we ask that all EJAC members respond when your name is called. Please state here your affiliation, pronouns, and if you are on or off camera, and if off, the reason for doing so consistent with our meeting requirements. For EJAC members who join the meeting later, we will be asking them to also verbally announce their attendance in the same fashion, so it's clear to all participants who is in attendance. So let's begin. Martha Dina Arguello.
Marta Dina Arguello with Physicians for Social Responsibility, Los Angeles.
Juan Flores.
Good afternoon, everyone. Juan Flores with the Center on Race, Poverty, and Environment.
Dr. Catherine Grupa. Kevin Hamilton.
Kevin Hamilton with San Joaquin Valley Medical Advocates for Healthy Air.
John Harriel Jr. Tom Helm.
Hey everybody, Tom Helm, co-founder of Valley Improvement Projects, attending virtually. I'm trying to get to the office as soon as I can to be in front of a computer. I was touring our local landfill to be ready for CARB's methane landfill regulations. So that's why I'm not home yet. It went long. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Tom. Good to have you. Matt Holmes.
Good afternoon, Matt Holmes, California Environmental Justice Coalition, masculine pronouns.
John Kevin Jefferson III. Ray Leone. Luis Almeida. Jill Sherman Warren.
Hello, everyone. Jill Sherman Warren, enrolled member of the Hoopa Tribe and the executive director of the Native American Environmental Protection Coalition, which is 30 tribes strong. And I am in the car outside of the courthouse because I'm waiting for my son to say his wedding vows. So I might go off camera shortly, but yeah, I'm in the car, so. And in Northern California, so you never know if you're going to have good service or not.
Congratulations, Jill.
Can I get Martha Dina, can you speak for a moment? We're going to test the sound.
Yes, I can. Hello,
Great.
everybody.
Hear you. Thank you. All right, Jill, let's try it one more time. Make sure we can hear you.
Or you couldn't hear anything I said.
Yeah.
Anyway, I will be, I am remote. I will be turning my camera off because sometimes it works better when I'm on my cell because my phone, for some reason, it overheats. So good.
Good. Thank you. Good to have you. All right. I will now turn it over to our co-chair today. I think we have two co-chairs that are not in attendance. So Martha Dina, I'll hand it over to you to go over today's agenda.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everybody. We will be first reviewing, we'll have some introductions and opening remarks that we want to keep really short. And then we'll go through the minutes from our April 17th. There'll be public comment, then on to the motion to approve the minutes. We're going to then have, is it okay if I move the order around? Because I know we have a speaker that has to leave.
Yes, that's
Is that
fine.
okay? So we're going to first have the discussion about natural working lands, and then we will go on to a discussion about the building decarbonization resolutions, and we'll have public comment. CARB will present the Senate on Senate Bill 1137, Development of Performance Standards for Emissions Detection Systems. Again, public comments. CARB will make some announcements, and then we'll go on to next steps and closing remarks. And the next steps will really be around the July meeting and finalizing the resolutions and any other ones that we want to bring and prepare for. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. We will then go to the meeting agreements.
Okay. Pay attention to equity of airtime, be present, be open, and we're going to have to be, we really want you to be realistic and monitor our ability to get through the full agenda and seek out synergies in our work. Do yes and. If you're virtual, we all know the rules. Stay on camera throughout the duration of the meeting, and if not, let us know. And all the members who may have to go off camera have already been proactive in letting us know. And then if you're in the room and you're going to leave, just let the staff know, since there's no co-chairs in the room. We want to listen and be compassionate and supportive and reach for and invite intuition and inspiration. Look for ways to move toward action whenever possible. Respect the agenda and trust the process, and share responsibility for success. And we will get through today's meeting.
Thank you, Martha Dina. And I just want to pause for a moment and recognize that we have had a committee member join us. Luis, I see that you're there. Do you want to state your presence?
Yeah, hi, sorry about that. I'm working on my mobile, but Luis Olmedo, Executive Director, Comité Cívico del Valle, here, present.
Thank you. Good to have you. We will now move on to agenda item number 3, introductions and opening remarks, and I will turn it over to Chanel Fletcher.
I'll just say welcome to everyone. So as Jane said, my name is Chanel Fletcher. I'm the Deputy Executive Officer. Oh, really close. Can people hear me now? That's better.
Yes.
Okay. Deputy Executive Officer at the California Air Resources Board. Happy to be here today. And I just want to say to the members of the public, the EJAC members, the CARB deputies, the chair's office, and any board members who are here with us today, whether you're online or in the room, just thank you so much for being here. Before diving into the official open meeting remarks, I do want to pause and just reflect on our public meetings. I know that Martha Dina shared a little bit before. We were kind of officially at quorum, and so I wanted to kind of build on that. I do want to note, okay, hold on. Let me get this really as close as possible. Is that better?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you hear me online?
Yes.
Yes, much
Okay.
better.
Awesome. So I'll just say that before diving into the official opening remarks, I just wanted to pause and reflect on the public meetings, in particular the meeting that we had last month. I think, as mentioned, it is a Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act advisory body. So we will continue to work with the EJAC to ensure that we're adhering to Bagley-Keene requirements. Public comments in these meetings are welcome, particularly when they relate to CARB programs or policies. I think on our end, we will make sure to let folks know in advance the subject of the public comment period, and we really do ask that the comments stay within those areas as much as possible to ensure that our meetings are both efficient and really consistent with the notice agenda and meeting materials. I do also want to note that at CARB, we do have core values that we bring to the table when we convene these EJAC meetings. The values are really in support of our air quality mission and to allow space and dialogue for public comment and EJAC discussion. We understand that there are differing views and perspectives, and I think we welcome that. And we want everyone to keep in mind that this is intended to be a respectful atmosphere with open lines of communication where we can discuss items of mutual interest in a transparent way. And so as a standard practice, the staff has built in multiple public comment periods that relate to specific discussion items across the agenda, and the goal is to provide ample time to provide feedback. I do want to reiterate that comments should not result in in-person attacks or any kind of attacks on EJAC members, CARB staff, CARB board members, the chair, or public commenters. So with that said, I will turn back to today's meeting. I do want to thank Martha Dina for walking through the agenda. I do want to note that one of the things that we had kind of flagged with the building decarbonization resolution, that CARBs are zero emission space and water heating standard. It will be a greenhouse gas efficiency reduction standard, not an efficiency standard, which is, I think, noted in the draft resolution. So I think we can flag that when we have that conversation. We just wanted to make sure that it was clear that it's a emission reduction standard and not an efficiency standard. The other thing that I'll note is that we had a few action items from the May meeting that I just wanted to walk through really quickly. So one is a reminder from Dr. Catherine's closing remarks. The cap and trade resolution was finalized in its original form last year, November 2024. Since then, the EJAC has updated some of the resolution language for discussion at the July EJAC meeting. So this one then will be placed for a vote at the August EJAC meeting. So we're not discussing it today, but just wanted to remind folks that in July, we'll discuss the cap and trade resolution, and then they'll be put for a vote at the August EJAC meeting. I did want to also acknowledge that Martha Dina talked about the idea of co-designing policies in the past, and that included in our May and our April EJAC meetings. This is definitely something that we feel very strongly about. It's a core consideration as we're doing our work and really thinking about our plans for the EJAC advising the board on the AB 32 related programs. We really do want to and will continue to seek opportunities where the programs are early enough in the process to really have that co-designing and that development. So I just wanted to make sure that we acknowledged that we understand the importance of the request, and we do want to continue to follow up on that, especially as I think we have the current EJAC. I know that we're prepping towards that September joint EJAC and board meeting. And then I think the last point is that I do feel, or not that I feel, but I think that the EJAC has raised the Community Air Protection Program. And though I know that it was a decision not to agendize it for discussion, I did want to highlight that next month at our July board meeting, that's on July 24th, we will be providing our annual AB 617 progress update to the board. And so that board update, it's going to highlight the substantial emission reductions and innovative strategies that have been advanced by the 7 inaugural communities in the program that began their emission reductions programs in 2018. And then we will also have highlights to share on the tens of thousands of emission reductions from expedited BARC provisions in AB 617 and the rules that we're committed to in the SERPs, and as well as highlighting the significant enforcement actions from the 617 communities and from the air districts, as well as the statewide mobile monitoring efforts that are happening right now in the consistently nominated communities. So I just want to make sure we noted that. If there are any questions or just initial reactions to that, we also have Kevin Olp, This is the branch chief of our Office of Community Air Protection in the room, just if folks wanted to respond to that. And if not, I'm happy to turn it over to the EJAC co-chairs to provide their opening remarks. Well, I guess it's just co-chair, so just Martha Dina to provide your opening remarks and then to kick us off in the discussion.
I'll be very, very brief. I feel like this is going to be a working meeting. We want to make sure that we have an opportunity to review the resolutions, make corrections, and get them ready so that we can have them finalized for July. And so I'd like to do as much of the tweaking today and get as much comments today and over the next couple of weeks from other EJAC members so we can have a fairly rapid way of approving these at our next meeting. Yeah, I don't have any other any other comments.
Thank you, Martha Dina. All right, we will now move to agenda item number 4, the April 17, 2025 EJAC public meeting minutes. We do post the EJAC public meeting minutes on our website, and we like to review and adopt those minutes. Any discussion from the committee on the April meeting minutes? Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, just that after reviewing agenda item number 8, I think the note should reflect a request. I remember stating that it's difficult to pursue this item without a formal response from either Resources Agency or the Air Resources Board to the advice provided by the expert advisory group. We still don't have a response from the state, and that was certainly discussed at that meeting. So I don't know how that needs to be reflected, but it was discussed.
Okay, we are making note of that now, and so we will review the record and make sure we get that in the minutes, confirming that. Other discussion? Okay. Hearing none, we will now take public comment on this agenda item. We ask that everyone who is interested in speaking in Zoom, please raise your hand and we'll call on you in the order that you were raised. We will allow 3 minutes for public comment. Please state your name and affiliation before you provide your question or comment. Looking virtually, seeing no hands raised at this time. Seeing no one in the room, I'll give it a moment. All right, that concludes public comment on this item. We will now move to the next item to approve the meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
I make the motion to approve the meeting minutes of April.
Thank you. Noting that was Jill Sherman Warren. Can I get a second?
Second, Kevin Hamilton.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, we will now take a vote on this item. Martha Dina?
I vote to approve.
Juan Flores?
Yes.
Dr. Catherine Grupa? Kevin Hamilton?
Sorry. Yes.
Thank you, Kevin. John Harrell Jr.? Tom Helm?
Yes.
Matt Holmes?
Vote to approve.
John Kevin Jefferson III? Ray Leon? Luis Almeida?
Yes, vote to approve.
Bill Sherman Warren?
Yes, I approve.
Thank you. 7 in favor, 4 absent. The motion passes. We will now move to our next agenda item, noting that at the start of the meeting, co-chair Martha Dina Arguello requested that we take one item out of order. So I believe we will be taking agenda item number 8 first, and then we will move to agenda item number 7. Is that correct, Martha Dina? All right, we'll We'll give it a moment. I believe our next item is going to be the EJAC guest speaker presentation and discussion on the natural and working lands draft resolution. I will turn it over to Martha Dina to kick this item off. Martha Dina.
So, yeah, I realize I'm muted. I think we have, I'm going to rely heavily on Matt, who's in the room. I think we have two speakers. The first is Tori Estrada. And Michael Wara is our second speaker.
I wasn't sure if Tori was still going to be able to make it because he was under the impression that
Yeah, we would be earlier.
Malleable.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Michael's here as a discussant to help us clarify some of these clauses, but I don't know that he prepared a presentation. Michael, if you're
Okay.
on, can we elevate him to panelist?
Great. We're checking right now to see if we can.
Well, while we do that, I want to just make sure that the rest of the advisory committee has the draft resolution in front of them. What you have is really a bare bones version, trying to find both alignment with the state's other strategic planning documents. The state can fulfill multiple commitments with its climate investments and also protect people and places while hitting its carbon targets. And that's the sort of response that we would hope to see to the expert advisory committee's input from natural resources agencies, AB 1757 effort. So there's clear gaps in what's presented to you and presented in front of you. I would highly recommend that we have an additional clause highlighting state commitments in the borderlands, state commitments in tribal country. And I think the most glaring omission from this resolution is that, investments in national working lands are still dependent on the cessation of fossil fuel consumption. And, I don't know what the rest of the committee thinks about that, but I would lead this resolution off with a whereas, something along the lines of, any realistic climate action would require the cessation of fossil fuels production or consumption. So actually wrote something, but
Let me give you just one moment. And so we did check. We do not have anybody online to elevate, and we are going to get the resolution up on the screen right now as we discuss it. Thank you.
That's great. So maybe we need to give the committee a second to peruse the clauses and find the one that's closest to your strengths and help us give it either technical context with how this resolution could help elevate the state's existing commitments, remembering that this is a state public health agency that has an obligation to protect human health and can do so with these investments. Martha, I see your hand.
No, keep going.
And also keep in mind that there's a ton of co-benefits that the state is still struggling to center in its dialogues with its second-class experience of disadvantaged communities across the state. So these are heavy topics, and these shouldn't be written in secret, and they should be written out here in front of the public. And so feel free. We should offer you a few minutes to review if you haven't reviewed already, and to offer some language. I have a few, but I'd like to give you guys some time to think.
Mm-hmm. And if I can provide some more background, we have reached out to a number of organizations who have expertise in all of these areas who are providing us some technical assistance. We've reached out to some of our allies and that are working on sustainable and regenerative agriculture. And so we know that this is still a draft, and we're going to be getting a lot more information from them about what to include in the natural working lands. We're particularly interested in how many metric tons of reductions and carbon can we get from these measures that are regenerative, that have multiple co-benefits, and then really want to encourage CARB staff and the board to invest in these kinds of technology and these kinds of practices versus carbon capture and sequestration that has very few co-benefits, if any, to local communities. So this is how we want to be able to frame the resolution. So if any of the members have expertise in that area, we really invite you to help us with the whereases and be it resolved that we will ask CARB and the board to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just add a little context to that. If you'll remember the planning process before approval of the scoping plan, these were recommendations that were made really consistently by the Environmental Justice Advisory.
Oh, I lost you. You lost the sound.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, I can't hear her either.
I think they're gone. I don't see that room on the Zoom chat anymore.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah, we lost the room.
And I only lost sound this time. We lost the whole room.
That happened last time. So hold on,
Uh,
folks. If you guys, if we have no idea if the folks who are in the listening can hear us, we're going to try
right.
to get back online. I think Zoom is on, but the room is gone.
That's a rhyme. Good job there.
I wasn't trying.
I know. Zoom is on, but the room is gone. It is weird, though.
Oh, okay.
Hold conversation for a second, please. We can't hear you in the room.
Yes, we know. We see, but we still do not hear.
Okay, apologies for that. What it looks like is happening is that in the room, we are losing contact, but the virtual meeting is still staying up. So we can't hear you in the room and you can't hear us when we disappear, but I believe we are back on. Apologies to Matt for interrupting him, if you want to continue.
That's okay. I can sum it up quickly just to say that what we're looking for today is conceptual input from this justice literate community, trusting that the carbon targets that the state's required to achieve can be met through these investments as part of its portfolio, and that any questions that were raised during the planning process have been thoroughly dismissed.
I think we're opening it up for discussion, but do want to give folks a moment just to
Yeah.
take in the resolution.
So just to be clear, we're not going to vote on this today. Am I correct?
No,
Correct.
I think it's just, yeah.
We're not voting today. Okay.
No, we're just surfacing it so everybody has a chance to see
That's
it.
great.
Sorry, we're still doing it in the dark without the analysis and response.
Can I ask a quick question about one of the whereases?
Please, go ahead.
So the very first one, and I've gone through it a couple of times now, but I don't have it printed, so it's hard to make notes. But I do have it in a PDF. But I wondered why we used in number one, or the first one, state waters instead of just and water to absorb, or and open water, something like that. But or the state's water system
This
to
clumsy
absorb.
technique trying to put the onus on the state to fulfill its existing commitments, but no need for it to be there if you find it bloated.
Right. I mean, I get that part, and that work, those, and the state's commitment to that should, I think, be separately included, if not in this sentence, then somewhere else, but certainly not when we use forest soils and we have to go water at that point, or water systems. They're all really systems overall. I'm fine with whatever. Just one at a time.
Hi everyone, this is Juan. I do also would like to ensure that what we're talking here about is emphasizing that is the ability of the forest, the soils and the water to be the ones that absorb and store carbon. I don't want anybody on the state or any other agency to say, "Oh yeah, they agree with us. We need to sequester carbon." You see, um, I really would like for us to emphasize a lot more here that we're talking about a natural occurrence that we can help support, rather than us trying to make a business out of it. Or well, and us, I don't mean us, the IJAC, but the state.
Juan, do you see a need to define natural solutions or nature-based solutions in its own clause? Is that
I would like to, because I can totally see some industry saying, well, you see, where I extracted oil, that's a natural occurrence. We should take advantage of that. I just want to make sure that we cover every single corner so it's not being abused.
Go a little further there to naturally and naturally, effectively, uh, and I just went in my head and out of my head, uh, and efficiently, naturally, effectively, and efficiently absorb and store carbon. So right after two, Matt, if people agree, I would,
well,
and
I do
going
agree.
to it once.
And I think I tried to capture something similar lower in where we talk about ecological systems and sort of the glaring absence of referring to, you know, the durability of indigenous systems and traditional ecological knowledge to operate the place for 15,000 years.
But I think in the very first one is where we want to, load.
I'm with
It
that.
can be said again in pieces throughout the document, but just that naturally, effectively, and efficiently right after the word to, I think again punches that whereas statement up, uh, because people will argue, well, while it's natural, it's not efficient and it's not really effective because we can get more reductions from this or from that.
Is there
I
also
mean,
something there about the continuity of these systems, right? Like it's really great to have a river that runs salmon for eons as opposed to waters cattle for a couple of decades. So that nature-based systems are self-sustaining. I'm trying to give flesh to effective.
and I mean, I like the self-sustaining piece.
Cool. I think we're capturing quite a bit of them on the screen. I'm also creating like sort of a bullet of jargon or language in a side document that we can continue to review.
Further discussion?
If there's no hands from the committee, I have an additional recommendation.
Go for it, Matt.
Sweet. So if we go down to skipping ahead from, well, I'll read through the second clause, this one's pretty straightforward. Whereas carbon sequestration derived from urban and community forestry also provides life-saving public health interventions in California cities and towns. That seems like a pretty straightforward statement. It may not be a heavyweight when it comes to carbon numbers, but people and places in California matter. And then skipping or going to the next one, whereas shifting management practices on a fraction of the state's private forest lands alone could absorb an additional 300 million metric tons of CO2 within the next decade. That really comes right out of the recommendations from 1757. I do feel like it lacks some sort of social science attribution for its benefits to forest-dependent communities. So that could take some attention. And then this fourth clause, maybe a bigger deal than I fully realized at first, but whereas significant investment in fuels management can reduce fire risks and prevent the destruction of California communities, it's a pretty darn grand statement by itself. But without, fuels reductions, we're going to continue to attribute carbon to the atmosphere in rapid surges as we lose our forests. And there's a real risk that fuels reductions becomes a commodification, extractive industrial process, as we are wont to do. We already see globally significant scale projects proposed for California to haul out bolewood and ship it to the Pacific Rim for burning in coal-fired power plants, which I don't think anybody here thinks makes any sense. So I've got an additional recommendation there on the fourth clause in the original document, that we need fuels reduction measures that are designed first and foremost to benefit forest health and which do not irresponsibly commodify forest biomass. As anybody who's looked at the issue can see, forest thinning seems like a great idea when you do it on scale, on lacunarity, on fire prevention and reducing the fire ladder. But when we do it based off some clumsy bulk weight material, that has you driving tractors into the forest, tearing up the forest floor. You're hemorrhaging all of the forest moisture. And we've seen, especially in the Dixie Fire, that forests that had experienced thinning actually burned hotter and faster than forests that hadn't been thinned. So fuels reduction is a big framework, and I think here at EJAC we want it to be more thoughtful and precise.
So just putting my hand up there. We're just putting our hand up if we want to speak, or what are we doing?
Sure, go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, so with regard to that one, Matt, I mean, we skipped the other two pretty quickly, but I agree with you 100%. So I think that whereas significant investment in, I would get the word forest in there at the beginning so everybody knows exactly what we're talking about, and forest management and fuel reduction or something like that. Because
oh, go ahead, Kevin.
Go ahead. No, that's just what I was thinking to make it more specific. Again, in the openings of any whereas statement, I like to make sure fuels management is kind of sticking out there, and there was no reference to fuels management of what. It could you definitely would want to take it that way, but I think we need to get the word forest in there as quickly as possible.
Yeah, we make some huge leaps here as well when we talk about fuels management and forests. Not all forests are created equal. So to say that California forests have been, have had fire suppression in them for over a century or whatever is true. But that doesn't mean that all forests are like the Southern Sierra that are made out of gravel and water and don't need a ton of carbon on them. We have forests that are powerfully sequestering carbon. And so to just clumsily have a statewide policy of fuels reduction, like where I'm from, up in Lassen National Forest, will result in gutting the forest. So there's got to be, as there is in the Expert Advisory Committee recommendations, a sub-regional designation for California forests, so that forest management may be relevant to the local ecology. Could get to be a pretty lengthy clause, but I think it's our job here to help disambiguate between.
But I think you moved a little further into the why there than the where.
Yeah.
That's all. Everything you said is true. Just how does it fit in there? And can you just say fuels reduction after management, after fuel, instead of management after fuels? And then that or something like that. And I would say will. I don't like can statements or may. I would say it will reduce fire risks. That's been pretty much demonstrated. And again, that goes with the whereas statement. Whereas this, and it will do this. And if we don't want to be wishy-washy about the thing, if we have the information to support that, and there are a number of publications on this. So not just here in California, but internationally and nationally. So
thank you. exactly what we need.
Thank you. And just to acknowledge, we are trying to make real-time edits on the screen, but this will not be the final version. We're doing that for the committee's benefit. I understand Matt is also taking notes. So we'll do our best to track it all. It's a little tricky. Jill, I did see your hand a moment ago. It looks like it's down now. If you wanted to say anything.
Yeah, yes. I don't know how or where exactly, but I think there needs to be room for acknowledgement or of going back to traditional tribal practices, which, you know, created healthy forests to begin with. And I know it always freaks people out when I say this, but you know, managing through fire, even though you were producing a certain amount of pollution, it's much less than what a wildfire would produce. And I know there's numbers around that. So I think that that managing for car for decarbonization includes traditional tribal practices that have been acknowledged um, scientifically throughout the state of California is something we need to acknowledge and work towards achieving that mutual reciprocity between people and the land. I'm not sure where to add that. I just know I
It
want to
needs
add
to
it
be there.
somewhere.
Yeah, I think there is a standalone sort of acknowledgement of tribal practices clause, but I think there's also places where that should be worked in repeatedly. Like when we talk about fuels reductions, fuels reductions that tribes are doing with Class 6 engines, patchwork burning acres, are much more effective than, again, a giant internationally owned wood pellets mill in the middle of nowhere that everybody has to drive to in heavy duty trucks. The tech components are thorough in the expert advisory committee recommendations. And it's unfortunate that we're having to tease those out without any response from the state to the veracity of those claims. But I hear you, Jill, and we can work on the standalone statement, maybe the two of us, by pulling those recommendations down and doing it ourselves, I guess.
Great. Martha Dina?
No, I just wanted to add that maybe some of the things that Joe was talking about should be part of the preamble, right? That recapturing traditional practices has real value in addressing climate change, and we should, yeah. So I'm going to stop talking because I'm repeating what others have said.
I like that.
Yeah, I agree as well. And there's an urgency to it. So putting it up, you don't say the most important thing last.
You said you were collecting the notes as we go along, and maybe you can forward that document around once we're finished with this today with your notes. Matt, would that be cool?
Staff have access, I can ask them to forward.
Thank you. Well, you said you were making little notes on. Oh, is that the document they have you're making notes on?
No, this doesn't look like it. It looks like they're using Adobe. I have a Google Doc.
Yeah.
But Ashley, we can share that with everybody on the committee. Great.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, are we allowed to share Google Docs with everybody at the same time?
No, we are
good
not,
question.
but we will.
No, we're not.
We'll work internally. It'll go to the
Kevin
subgroup.
Hamilton to our sub-quorum group, right?
Yes.
That's
and
right.
Jill.
Jill. We can, yeah, this is an area of great interest to me. Ecological restoring, biodiversity. Efforts to produce natural systems, biodiversity, and enabling stakeholders. I'm not sure when with number, I'm down 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5. I'm in order. So I just want to read that out loud. Whereas ecological restoration efforts that promote natural systems biodiversity and enable the state's long-term conservation planning goals. And I'm not
Yeah,
sure that that's
understandably,
not really a
understandably
statement.
grasping at that. Kevin, there's a ton of plans over in our partner agency at Resources Agency around biodiversity and 30 by 30 that could really use some investment, but most of that money is going to go into subsidizing carbon innovation ideas in this state.
I would just say get rid of the word that.
Okay.
Just it's a statement, right? You're making the statement. Once you put that in there, you've got to somehow finish it. But now, see the different way it reads is whereas ecological restoration efforts promote natural systems, biodiversity, and enable the state's long-term conservation planning and goals. See, now we turned it into a statement. That's all.
Thank you. Did you grow up with teachers and red pencils?
I grew up with a well, I didn't grow up with my mom,
Okay,
but
guys. All right,
uh,
guys. Focus.
all of my letters and sent them back to me when I was in the Navy, and I never wrote to her again.
All right. Let's keep moving, guys.
But yeah, we're trying to lighten it up a little bit here, Martha. That's all.
I know.
Well,
We all got.
keeping it moving, that was a good example of, calling out misalignment statewide, that we have lots of planning, and right now, no
Great
state
statement.
agency has the benefit of the expert advisory committee's recommendations to meet our carbon targets. And I don't have global on-state planning documents, but somebody does, and the entire state is responsible for implementing 1757 statutory requirements. Moving on, I think this is where our work may matter. It certainly matters always, but the agriculture realm, the fluctuation in carbon sequestration from agricultural practices does still turn out to be mercurial, and so the oomph of carbon sequestered is there's a debate around that, but there's absolutely huge abuses in the agricultural sector that are attributing carbon to our problem, while also abusing water, workers, and soil, and that there are I thought really thoughtful recommendations from the expert advisory committee about the distribution authority within agriculture to new farm owners and new communities who have been precluded from it by historically racist policies, and that for lack of a standard for regenerative agriculture, we do have a standard for organic agriculture that they recommend adhering to. But I know that there are farm fighters on here that know more about those abuses than I do. And so I really do want to make sure that this isn't a wimpy statement or there aren't any passive, transitions in here.
It's like Ray is on.
Hello, buenas tardes.
I would get rid of the word the promotion. I would get rid of promotion of and just say whereas and the promotion of just whereas organic and climate beneficial agriculture and farmland conservation will sequester carbon while mitigating massive warming emissions. And I wouldn't use while again. I would just say and also strengthens agricultural communities.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge that we have had a committee member join the meeting. Ray Leone, would you like to state your presence? All right. I think Ray may have just joined us, so we'll give him a moment. Sorry to interrupt the discussion. Continue.
Yeah, and if I can move us to sort of our final clause here, one of the real cross-cutting directives from the expert advisory committee is that investing in natural and working lands, the scenario and the 7 land types it contains, is an urgent priority. It's something that has diminishing returns the longer we wait. So if we get after 5 years, a lot of these places are going to be too hot and too cooked to really take root, and that we should be confident moving urgently in this direction, considering these are all tried and true proven strategies for millennia, and that it's such a shame we've spent so much time arguing over things nobody's ever done before. And so should there be a need for innovative new strategies, they can certainly wait until we've taken care of all of our existing commitments. in all the conservation agenda that's entailed here. So feel free to review this language. There's also language in the expert advisory committee recommendations that support this.
Thank you. Additional discussion?
I'm just always uncertain when I use the word imperiled. You know, I mean, that's sort of highfalutin, but Park Service used it quite a bit, having lost, you know, irreplaceable assets for this country.
All right. Do we want to clarify, Matt, could you clarify next steps for this item?
Yeah, I think clear next steps are for us to clean this up, get folks' comments in here, and certainly committee members, you know, we have, it seems like a month is a long ways away, but we really need any additional comments in the next week, week and a half, so that we can discuss them and get something out for posting and approving at the July session, at least approving to recommend to the board at the July session. And then I think we need sort of 2 accelerated task forces on tribal commitments and borderland commitments. And I know exactly who those folks are. So I will coordinate those additional clauses, making sure that they're adequate. And anybody on the committee, so long as it's not more than 3 or 4 of you, you know, let's put our heads together on those clauses, because we can't ignore those, like
Great.
the scoping plan sadly does.
Thank you. So maybe looking for comments from the committee by Friday, June 20th. That gives you just a little bit over a week. And noting that Jill has also said she will provide some comments after the meeting. All right, hearing no more discussion, I think that concludes this agenda item. Thank you. Again, we've taken one agenda item out of order on today's agenda, so that was agenda item 8. We will now go back to agenda item 7, which is the EJAC discussion on the building decarbonization draft resolution. I will turn this over, I believe, to Martha Dina to kick this off.
I am unmuted now. So we've been working on this. This is actually not the most current version. Can you pull up the more current version of the resolution?
Sorry, we lost audio again. Hold on, Marta.
Oh, we lost the room. Okay.
We're rebooting. We're close. Sit tight.
Okay. All right.
All right. Again, apologies. It looks like we did go offline. I believe we're having internet connectivity issues in the room, so thank you for bearing with us. Martha Dina, I am sorry. As soon as I turn that item over to you, we could not hear you. Can I have you start over? Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to say that the what was on the screen was not the latest, but we can certainly work from that. If you could pull up the latest one, that would be great.
For today's meeting, we can bring up the one that was posted for the public, if that's possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to that one and we can start there. So I want to tell you the process for getting this resolution. In the spirit of always reaching out to our environmental justice partners and communities who are doing this work on the ground, I did consult with the Building Energy Equity and Power Coalition, and I happen to be at a national Building Decarb conference right now in New Orleans. And so we wanted to, begin and acknowledging that and thanking CARB. And so this one doesn't start with that, but really acknowledging that on the building decarb work and on the Chanel reminded me, the efficiency standards, we've had the ability to begin to look at what co-design looks like. So this, this resolution really just codifies much of what we have been asking and was discussed at the last meeting around ensuring that we're designing for renters in mind, and that we are working to coordinate among agencies. So if you can move up, I don't remember if this is the one that has. So spend a little moment reading through it for the other members.
Martha, we lost you again. I'm really sorry. Pause.
Oh, did we lose the meeting? Okay.
The sound is out again.
I don't know what's going on. They're having connectivity problems there at CARB.
I was on a meeting yesterday. Same thing. It must be the atmosphere.
Kevin Hamilton, can you? Okay.
You know what? I'm sorry.
All right. Can
back?
you hear Kevin Hamilton?
I can hear you.
Wonderful, thank you. So I apologize. We did again lose connection there for about 3 or 4 minutes. So going back on, but before we continue the discussion, Radhika, did you want to add something to the discussion?
Yes, I just want to reiterate the fact that CARB is working on a zero emission standard and not an appliance efficiency standard.
We'll change the language.
Got it. Okay.
I changed it on the other one, but not this one.
Got it. I just want to make sure that,
Yes, we know.
Okay, cool.
Okay. All right. So you can all read through it. We really, again, want, and we made I've made some edits, but in the edits, we really wanted to start the resolution with thanking the CARB staff, who has been very inclusive, who has worked a lot with the environmental justice groups throughout the state of California that are working on equitable building decarbonization, and have been very proactive in listening and incorporating those recommendations. And the other context of this is, and we talked a lot about this at the last meeting, but I will remind folks that the groups on the ground throughout the state have done a lot of work to ensure that we're centering around tenants, that we design for that market, because in order to get the biggest benefit from building decarbonization, we have to make sure that it gets to renters. Certainly in Los Angeles, where more people rent than own, those are really important. And how we design programs for CARB that take into considerations that the things that CARB is not in charge of, such as tenant protections and other things, that we have found a way working with CARB to acknowledge those issues and to incorporate that knowledge into the development of the regulation. So I do again want to thank CARB, and I know I want to call in Kevin, who was in Ireland when I was working on this. So I didn't want to bother you in Ireland. So I would, really benefit from. I'll send you the new copy that we have, and then we can finalize it for the next meeting. But now I want to stop talking and hear from the rest of the committee members.
I'll hold any comments till you send me the document.
Okay. All right. So can you move through the document? Because I worked on this a lot and I'm traveling, and so my brain's a little foggy. So one of the things that we're changing from this draft is acknowledging that this is really a recommendation to the California Air Resources Board, and we're going to encourage coordination with the PUC and the CEC. And secondly, we're also what's
We
not in
lost you
here.
again.
Are you kidding? We lost the room.
Well, most of us are here. So no,
I know.
that's
I'm
right.
like, do I keep talking? I guess not. That would be wrong.
But
Yeah, the
yeah,
building
this
lost audio again. You guys are frozen, but give us a
Mhm.
sec. I'll let you know.
is a great document, Martha. I really like
The other
this.
ones, I know the other one's better. My second
Can't
draft was
wait.
better.
Can't wait. I love building decarbonization, as you well know. This is, yeah, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
split up, making a little more.
I
Yeah,
know.
no, it's
I'm
a
like,
fun.
well, I know I keep wanting to start talking, but I realize that they shouldn't because the rest of the room is not here.
Loud. They're not loud. Ireland is a beautiful place. I will tell you right now. I was stunned. There were electric trucks everywhere. Over 50% of their trucking fleet has been moved to electric. Another 20% is hybrid, and they intend to get to 100% by 2035. Um, they don't they don't grouch about it at all. In fact, they all say, "Yeah, why wouldn't we?" It's and yeah, I brought up the thing about what's going on here because I was asked by so many people once they found out I was from here,
Mhm.
from California, how I felt about it. I got many compliments for being in California, and one person told me, "Why don't you just become a state? I mean, become your own state. When are you going to do that? Be your own country."
Kevin, we're public right now. Maybe we should we should.
Republic on this side, I thought we were broken off.
No, I don't. I think everyone who's on Zoom is still here.
Never mind. It's a beautiful country. I highly recommend going if you're interested in seeing green grass everywhere. 50 inches of rain a year.
I see green grass everywhere in Humboldt County, but it's not that kind.
A little darker. That's the thing. I come from Ohio, and I really felt at home because the grass there is this lighter, not like yellow green, but there's a difference. And when you grow up with it, like where you grow up, that's your green, right? So I know we're public, but still, I don't think the public cares if we talk more generally and cheerfully. I don't know.
They might be entertained.
Yeah, these things can be very boring.
And we're back.
We're back.
All
It
right.
sounds like a TV show.
Again,
All right.
apologies.
I feel like we should talk really fast before we lose internet again.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So there's a different version, and I apologize. So one of the things that I'm going to add is really a recommendation that CARB help municipalities that are where this tension around rental housing, evictions, and displacement and those things by issuing some guidance, much like CARB had done the land use guidance document many years ago. That was actually a really good guidance document. And unfortunately, not everybody followed it, but we were always able to use it and invoke that when we were working on land use issues, and it was very helpful. And so what I would say is it would also help CARB to document the lessons learned from the whole process that we've been working on with that the advocates around building decarbonization have been working with the CARB staff on. So that's one recommendation I definitely want to put into the resolution. And then the rest, I would love your input. You can, if you have the document, you can click to the comment letters, which really I've tried to synthesize the three comment letters, our own conversations, into the final draft, which I will share with a subquorum.
All right, additional discussion? Yeah, Matt?
Martha, I'm wondering if there was like a final roster of agencies that should be in the recommended interagency working group? Or is that, I can't click through anything here.
Yeah, it's CARB, the CPUC, and the CEC.
Okay.
And well, never mind.
Additional discussion?
Well, if there is no additional discussion, then my recommendation is that I provide members of the committee that want to see the next version and help me finalize it so we can vote on it at the next meeting. So I'm going to volunteer Kevin Hamilton to work with me on this, and any other members of the committee.
We lost you again.
Ah.
Do even I have you? Is anybody there?
Yeah, we're still here.
Okay. Yeah, so you're still there. It's still in the
really
building.
apologize to all the attendees.
Yeah, did we need to kind of stop to have it figured out, or is it just what's happening?
I don't know.
I don't want to provide feedback on that. But I think we're just waiting. I still haven't seen Tech in the room yet.
I see everybody room and otherwise, I think now, right? We're just missing the audio.
Yeah, the room can't hear you and you can't hear the room. You want me just to put them on my phone? Can't.
You gotta they gotta be able to record it all.
I think we're close. Sit tight, we're getting creative.
You know, Matt, if maybe you can mention to them, take a 5-minute break and get this fixed. If that, if they need to get a tech in there or something. There they are again, because this is really disruptive. So if you need 5 or 10 minutes to get this actually fixed, I think that would be a reasonable thing to do.
As hard as we can. I guarantee you, we're working very hard on this. So,
right. Is anybody in the room who knows how to fix it?
Yeah, we do have a lot of support. So we're working very hard. Thank you.
Do you need a little time?
I think let's go ahead and see if we can wrap this item, and then we'll evaluate at that moment if we can take a break and do anything else.
Right. This is very disruptive. I know it's not your fault. Just
absolutely
let's fix
understood. I think we might be close on this item. And Martha Dina, I believe I interrupted you with sort of the next steps.
Yeah, I think the next steps are for us to review the more current draft that I can share with a subquorum, and then have as close to a final draft ready before the next EJAC meeting. And can we, then I can send it to you and you can send it to all the members, right? When I have a final draft for
That
their
is correct.
reviewing?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so that's what we'll do. We'll spend do a little more tweaking to this version with Kevin, and then we will send it to CARB staff, who will then send it to the rest of the committee to give input so that when we come back, because we're going to have a really packed agenda for the next month, because it's also right before we prep for the board meeting. So we don't want to spend a lot of time tweaking and writing by committee. So that's my commitment, to finish this and send it out.
Wonderful. Thank you, Martha Dina. All right. We do apologize. We're working as hard as we can in the room. We would like to try and continue if possible and wrap this item in the public comment on the last two items. So as a reminder to those attending virtually, we have a public comment period for items 8 and 7. Those were taken out of order, but we have covered both items at this point. And so we will open this up to public comment on both of these resolutions. These are not being voted on today. There was just discussion and suggested revisions. We expect that these might come up again at the July meeting, but any comments from the public on both of these agenda items, but limited to these two agenda items. If you're attending virtually, please raise your hand. And looking in the room, seeing no one in the room, looking virtually, we have about 50 virtual attendees at this point. Seeing no hands raised, I'm going to give it a moment.
Thank you all for hanging in there.
All right, again, the public comment period for agenda items 7 and 8, both of the resolutions that were discussed today. Seeing no one in the room making a comment and no one virtually raising their hand, I think we will go ahead and wrap public comment on this item. We're going to now take a break until 2:30 and see if we can address some of our AV issues. Again, we apologize. Thank you for your patience. So we'll break until 2:30. All right, next item on the agenda item number 10 is the CARB presentation on Senate Bill 1137, Development of Performance Standards for Emission Detection Systems. I will turn it over to CARB staff.
Yeah, hi, can everybody hear me okay?
We can in the room. I'll trust that they can hear you online.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys. Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Donnie Jackson, and I'm pleased to be here on behalf of the SB 1137 implementation team with the California Air Resources Board. The title of this presentation is SB 1137, Development of Performance Standards for Emission Detection Systems. And I'm here to present background information and to solicit input and feedback on what our team is working on. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to start with a few slides on the history of Senate Bill, or SB 1137, before getting into CARB's responsibilities. SB 1137 was signed into law in September 2022. Then in early 2023, an industry-led referendum delayed its implementation until June of 2024, when it immediately went into effect. Next slide, please. For more context, SB 1137 establishes health protective zones around sensitive receptors located within 3,200 feet of oil and gas production wells and production facilities. Examples of sensitive receptors include residences, schools, hospitals, clinics, and businesses that are open to the public. SB 1137 prohibits the drilling of new oil and gas wells in these health protective zones. And then operators of existing facilities must submit leak detection and response plans for all their facilities that fall within the zone to the California Geologic Energy Management Division of Department of Conservation, also known as CalGEM. Next slide, please. So SB 1137 requires that leak detection and response plans that are submitted to CalGEM to include 4 key components: an emission detection system, which is a continuously operating monitoring system that will identify target toxic chemicals for detection, an alarm system that alerts the operator when leaks occur, a response protocol for identification and remediation of leaks, and notification to the community when leaks persist and cannot be fixed within 48 hours. Next slide, please. Under SB 1137, CARB's responsibilities are very focused and limited. SB 1137 directs CARB to develop regulations to set minimum performance standards for the emission detection systems required by SB 1137. It also directs CARB to consult with air districts to identify the toxic pollutants of highest concern by region. Next slide, please. The SB 1137 requirements for emission detection systems are different from existing oil and gas leak detection requirements. As seen on this graphic, there are air pollution control district rules that seek to minimize VOC and toxic air contaminants. There are the CARB greenhouse gas emission standards for crude oil and natural gas facilities that seek to reduce methane emissions. And the US EPA has recently amended their new source performance standards and added emission guidelines for existing sources to set increasingly stringent leak detection thresholds and limit other emission sources previously exempt. Generally, these will involve periodic inspections using handheld instruments, typically conducted on a quarterly basis. Next slide, please. Here we have a graph that compares the leak detection methods in California. First, there are the various methane leak detection and repair requirements of the US EPA, CARB, and the air districts. These are periodic inspections, most likely quarterly basis, with handheld instruments checking small areas. Second is the California Satellite Methane Project, which will record images of methane plumes from large leaks on a weekly to a monthly basis. Then in contrast, we have SB 1137, which focuses on toxic air contaminants and requires continuous monitoring. Here, the operator is required to install monitoring equipment between potential leak sources and sensitive receptors. Under SB 1137, the coverage area is typically at facility level, and the frequency of detection is essentially minutes to hours in duration. The continuous emission detection system adds another layer of protection for communities that are within 3,200 feet of an oil and gas facility. Next slide, please. CARB will be developing performance standards for the continuous emission detection system under SB 1137. A performance standard refers to a set of defined criteria that specify the expected level of accuracy, precision, and other relevant parameters that an emission detection system should consistently meet during operation, allowing for reliable data collection and decision-making. Essentially, it will be a benchmark for how well a system should perform under specific conditions. Examples of performance standards include detection time, averaging time, spatial coverage, detection limit, and alarm threshold. Next slide, please. In this slide, we see examples of monitoring technology. In general, there are 3 categories that the technologies will fall within. There are the point sensor, the laser path sensor, and a camera-based sensor. Operators can select whatever type of technology will accomplish the performance standards at their facility, detecting emissions before they can impact sensitive receptors. Next slide, please. So then CARB, with consultation with CalGEM, will also review and approve or deny the leak detection and response plans. Additionally, CARB will collaborate with CalGEM to develop methods for providing public access to data generated by the emission detection systems. Next slide, please. So the leak detection response plan implementation deadlines for oil and gas operators are established by law and provided in this table. July 1st, 2028 is the deadline for operators to submit their plans. This deadline drives the CARB rulemaking schedule because the performance standards need to be adopted before this date. Then July 1st, 2029 is the deadline for CalGEM, upon concurrence with CARB, to approve or deny the plan providing notices of deficiency. And then July 1st, 2030 is the deadline for operators to fully implement the plan, meaning the emission detection system must be up and running. Next slide, please. Here we see our proposed rulemaking timeline. As of today, we're in the preliminary stages of the process. We've had our introductory public workshops in March of this year. Next, we will have a second public workshop in late 2025, where we will present and solicit feedback on draft regulatory text and draft technical support documents used to inform our rulemaking, as well as draft alternatives analysis. These draft supporting documents will include commercially available emissions monitoring technologies, alarm thresholds, and pollutants of concern. In spring of 2026, we will submit our alternatives analysis to Department of Finance. Next slide for Spanish, please. Thank you. By late 2026, we will begin our 45-day public review and comment period. The full staff report with appendices will be available along with the full draft of regulatory text for public comment. The CARB board hearing will take place in late 2026, where the public is invited to attend and provide comment. By summer of 2027, we plan to release our final rulemaking package to the Office of Administrative Law for their approval. And then our target effective date for this regulation is January 1st, 2028, which is followed by the July 1st, 2028 submission deadline for operators' leak detection and response plans. Next slide, please. Our engagement strategy so far has focused on participation in meetings. Staff have presented at 2 methane task force meetings. They've met with the Last Chance Alliance. We've met with the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors for District 2. We've attended meetings, AB 617 community meetings for Arvin Lamont and the South Los Angeles. And we've hosted a joint public workshop with CalGEM for the preliminary rulemaking information. And we are very interested to hear who else should be attending our meetings. Next slide, please. So in the creation of these performance standards, we'd like to request community input. What are your specific concerns and questions about monitoring for leaks at facilities near you? You can reach out to us via email on the screen. We are open for questions, comments, suggestions for any kind of options and information that you may have. And CARB staff is available for one-on-one meetings, both in person or remote. Next slide, please. And last slide. So thank you, everybody. Our team very much appreciates the opportunity to be here today, and we're looking forward to working with you on this important and impactful regulation. For more information, you can visit our website seen on the screen, subscribe for future announcements, and then this webpage will also be where we will make our draft documents available for public review. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll open it up to the committee for questions and discussions on this. Martha Dina, I see your hand, and then Kevin.
Well, thank you. One, I now know how to say timeline in Spanish, so really I'm very excited about that. Second, I am the co-chair of Standing Together Against Neighborhood Drilling, which is some of our members are part of the 617 South LA. So we'd like to invite you to actually meet with the Stand LA Coalition and maybe even the Visión Coalition, which is the coalition of environmental justice groups who worked very, very hard on 1137 to provide you input. And so I can help coordinate that.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Does that mean I'm up or I?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So, could you bring back slide 28, please? Great. Okay. Thank you. I
Oh,
just needed to be reminded. Go ahead.
sorry,
Oh,
thank you for calling up that slide. I
yeah.
have a question about this identified toxic chemical constituents of highest. One of the things that we found is that,
All
and
right.
I can't,
Can the
oh,
Oh, no.
no, the room's still there, so maybe we haven't lost the room.
Is the room still there?
I see the room, but I don't know if they can, it's offline again.
can you hear us?
Okay. Yes.
You can hear us.
Yes.
Now we can hear you.
Okay. Uh, please continue.
Go, Martha.
So on the toxic chemical piece, and I'm not going to remember within 1137 and all the detail right now, but one of the things that we found with the first bill around disclosure of chemicals used at oil sites is that if it's not used in the actual drilling, it doesn't get reported. And if your equipment is not there on the particular day that they're using the chemical odorants, you may not pick those up. And the chemical odorants are a whole different class of chemicals. They're mostly endocrine disrupting. And so like jasmine odor control and those things, they're really toxic and they're endocrine disruptors. So they have a whole different toxicology, right, than some of the other chemicals that are used. Are you going to try to identify some of those? And I don't even know if there's testing equipment that can measure those. But that's a huge concern in the community.
And just adding to that, a lot of those have already, as Martha Dean is saying, have already been identified. Sampling has been done by communities. Analysis have been done. Those have been turned into the agency and especially to CalGEM. CCEJN is doing a tremendous amount of work in the South Valley on this. So, how do we connect those things? And again, the long-term on-site monitoring that is required for this, very similar to what will be required if we're going to see, plug any of these wells. As we well know, they leak later as well. No one has successfully plugged one that I know of for more than 20 or 30 years before it starts leaking again. So, yeah, it's this one just, I don't know. I think this is going to be really the most critical. And I had a second question. Is there anything else on this slide, though, Martha, that you or anybody else had to talk about? Because I have one more comment. So, the timeline. I'm really surprised that we would give the oil and gas industry 5 years, basically, or 4 years to make the plan to do something that, quite honestly, I think for the most part, they already do internally. I mean, as I mentioned, just my opinion, but they're pretty smart about this kind of thing. I would argue that they have a lot of this information. The technology is available. It's just expensive. Um, so why that and all the way out, 5 years away before we get anything done? This has been an issue for many, I would argue probably since the 50s. And these toxics have been in our community, affecting our community's health. And it just seems like an awful long timeline for them to develop a plan, let alone implement the plan.
Well, and we do hear your frustration. Unfortunately, these deadlines were set by the legislature. So what happened is the referendum put everything on hold for a year and a half. None of us were able to
All right.
look at
This is
any
tied
regulations.
to that.
Yeah, and then AB 218 was put in place to take that pause into account. And so as a regulatory agency, the most we can do is implement what the legislature gives us.
I understand. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, and so that's where all that's coming from. It's unfortunately not us.
Sorry about about that. It's my lack of familiarity with this particular bill. I should know more about it. Thanks.
Oh, no worries. Always happy to help on this.
Kevin, you should trust your instincts because this is one of the situations where we essentially, if I obstruct justice, I don't get a courtesy timeline extension. And these operators banded together to subvert legislation, and now they're going to also still be responsible for grading their own report cards. And so they're going to be doing their own lax intervals of monitoring and on site. And what I can't understand is why there's any delay in the remote sensing data being provided to the public immediately. If California's paying for these flyovers, that data needs to be released immediately. I'm not going to be comforted finding out within 48 hours that I've been sucking down co-pollutants and endocrine disruptors like Martha just brought out. So I think it's outrageous that so much of the reporting and monitoring is incumbent on, the same crowd of people that tried to get away with not being regulated at this distance in the first place. So for the record, I understand that the agency is restricted by the statutory requirements of the legislation, but the public should know.
Lost you, Matt.
I do want to note that the satellite program is actually separate from SB 1137. It is
Do we
part
have
of.
the room still? Do we still have the room audio-wise?
so.
Because it sounded like Matt got cut off.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I believe we lost the room again.
I don't see the whole room on the Zoom screen anymore.
Video is solid now.
Actually, Linda, we can hear you. Go ahead, Linda. They said they can hear you in the room.
Okay, wonderful. We can't see them, but they can hear us, so great. So the satellite program is part of CARB's oil and gas.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
They're
Sorry,
asking us
Linda.
to pause.
Yes.
I don't know.
I'm going to feel bad about my bad internet anymore.
I felt like, did Matt get cut off though? I don't think he got. It sounded like he got cut off in space there.
Yeah, we lost feed.
All right, yours work.
Yeah, I think we're back. I just wanted to wrap up with the satellite, the remote sensing data from the methane satellite project. There's no reason that data can't be provided immediately to community groups for behavioral interventions. We can protect people's safety without cluttering this with operator consultations. California paid for that. There's no reason for that data to sit and hawk while somebody cleans up their act. If you're leaking right now, we should know right now. And then I don't know if you caught my comment about directing outreach to the communities that are most encumbered with abandoned orphan wells all over the state. There's a map for that. The idea that it's the responsibility of communities to notice this meeting, to find a way to protect themselves is outrageous. The state has failed to provide equal protection under the law to these communities. Let's go find them. I will help.
Paul got cut off earlier. So the satellite methane program is actually part of CARB's oil and gas methane regulation. It is not part of SB 1137. And we just started receiving data from those satellite flyovers recently. I can tell you that we are limited. We give some input saying, okay, fly over this area at this time. And there is always a delay between when the satellite actually reads the data and then translates it and reports it to us. Under our reg, the satellite has to get it to us within 72 hours. I can tell you that as soon as we get it, that raw data has to be compared with known locations of various types of sources, whether it's oil and gas wells, dairies, landfills, and take into account climate data to determine where this plume is actually coming from. And then that immediately goes out to the operator and the district. We are working on that map to get it up on our website as soon as possible. But it's just the nature of the technology.
I understand. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but I understand that the state has siloed rules into different categories, but my lungs don't care where the co-pollutants are coming from, right? And if the satellite can detect anything, even if even if it turns out not to be verifiable data at the end of the day. I don't mind being warned in a health protective framework and it being wrong. I do mind not being informed because of a statutory or an institutional silo. So that's just for the record. I understand your challenges, and I was under the impression we were going to get 8 flyovers a day in California, seeing as how we're paying for them. Is that not the case anymore?
I'm the attorney. I'm not the technical team.
Okay.
So
I got a great attorney question for you. When these guys ran their referendum and pouted and tried to take their ball and go home, there were injuries in that delay, right? So what about the injured parties that the way they delayed the implementation of this regulation?
there are not any laws in place that would allow for that. So, there's not anything we can do as agencies. The best we can say is continue the dialogue with your local representatives, because those laws ultimately are going to be what enable you to get these particular concerns handled. Kevin, I see your hand is up.
Yes. So now that I found out, I didn't realize you were the attorney on it rather than somebody from that puts you in a spot that is very difficult right now. And I just want to address that when we're going to have something like this presented to EJAC, we do need somebody here who can speak authoritatively on the technical aspects of something like this.
Yeah.
It kind of puts you on the spot, and just as Matt was talking about something really critical, other than the idea that anybody can sue anybody if they feel their injury from this, they could still launch a lawsuit. If one of the big agencies like Earth Justice wants to pick it up, they could probably run with that. But that wouldn't be a question, I think, for you at that point. But I do want to be clear that this data should be transparent. Even in its raw form, it should be available. We had this sort of discussion with the state at CCAC, my former organization, back 7 years ago. We wanted raw data on toxics. And finally, we got it. I still remember one of the techs up at CARB saying, well, it's a really big file. I don't know if you can handle it. It's like, yeah, we can handle it. And we did a lot of good work with that. So we need the access to the raw data as well. You're not just the only ones that are analyzing that data. And my second comment is you mentioned operators, but I want to mention that we've got dairies strung out across this valley that are producing a tremendous amount of so-called natural methane. So we would need to include those sites as well. And is that included in this? It should. I assumed it was.
Is. Yes. And the reason you're not having any technical people with regard to the satellite program is because it has nothing to do with SB 1137. I just happen to be the attorney for both programs.
Fair point. Okay.
And so I just want to make that clear, is that we're very limited on what we can talk about with regard to the satellites because our team is not here. However, I do know that the data will be up, including those plumes. And it does include dairies, landfills, oil and gas.
There may be other sources of natural methane as well, and landfills as well. I mean, there's just so many opportunities there. But we need. I would address, excuse me, to Martha Dina, our chair here that's available, and to CARB, that we need to add this technical side of the satellite presentation to a meeting very soon now. Either next month, I know it's packed, maybe the month after, but that's the board meeting, certainly before the end of the year. Does that sound reasonable, Martha?
Yes. And, yes, I'm, this is an issue I've been working on for 13 years. And so I think I've been, sometimes I feel like I've been worn down to where, and I'm just going to tell a story. The first time a community member called about a smell and people getting ill, and that because of this oil site that is near USC, Alanco, that's how we started working on it. And I remember telling them it's going to take 30 years, and they're like, no, it won't. And here we are, right? And so while some action has happened at a few sites, this more systemic response that will protect communities is taking longer than we would like. And Linda, there's not, it is what it is. But I do think, I do want to invite you to, we can help organize, a Zoom meeting with some of our technical experts, some of our health experts who've been working on the ground, but also community members who live next to the well sites, and both throughout Wilmington and Los Angeles. And certainly, I'm going to volunteer my colleague Juan, who also has communities who live in the shadow of these sites, and how we do better by these communities, given that we've been forced to wait, and the delays and justice delayed is justice denied. And as Matt said, people are breathing this in every day, and it's not like we're going to make them stop breathing this. We're just going to monitor it, right? So from a risk, my background as a health educator, from a risk communication method, like, yes, we want to know right away, but you also need to be able to give folks real information and options and alternatives. And there isn't much, right? If you're living next to an oil well, other than for that facility to stop. And even if it stops, then there's still contamination. So, it's a messy problem.
Yeah, I definitely hear you. And I do know that once SB 1137 gets online and we start obtaining that data from the continuous detection systems, that will help as well. But unfortunately, that's probably a good 5 years off before we start receiving data on the SB 1137 monitoring. But I have reached out to the satellite team and let them know. So hopefully we can get that going for you guys.
Hearing none at this time. Noting for the record that we have about 35 virtual attendees. All right, that concludes this item. That will take us to our public comment period. This is the public comment period on both this item, and because we are at the end of the meeting, this can be the general public comment period also. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise your hand. If you're in the room, please step forward. We'll give it a moment, seeing no one in the room. All right. Looking virtually, I see Moses with your hand raised. Give us a moment. We'll get you unmuted and you can go ahead.
Can you hear me okay? Hello? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. This is Moses Huerta. I'm a resident here in Paramount and working on air monitoring issues here. Want to encourage the team and the conversation as we develop this. That was brought up here in the last half of this conversation, that we needed, as this data starts coming in, and we need to strengthen that data to be actionable, to be usable, to something that we can get to building policy to start addressing it. So ensuring that the work that we are starting now, give it a solid foundation, give it a solid root to then build off of, to then start making change. As the community members there, I share their concerns and their frustrations in the community where I'm in now. I have a refinery. There are wells here. I need to then understand with that information, with that data, that it is going to progress. If I'm putting in all this effort, as others that are here on this conversation, we need to make sure that that time is not wasted, that the knowledge that has been acquired and then shared is being used to purpose. Again, I thank you for the presentation and the conversations we're having here today. And I just want to echo and strengthen that perspective, that makes sure that as we develop this, it is something that is going to give us results positive results in all aspects. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak, and I'll yield back my time.
Thank you. Yeah, and if you'd like to make a comment, please raise your hand. I'll give it a moment, seeing no one in the room and no hands raised at this time. We'll give it just a moment. All right, that concludes public comment on this item and our general public comment period. I will turn it over to CARB to make some CARB announcements.
Nice. A little bit.
Oh, there.
You hear a voice, I think. No?
You don't hear anything?
Mm.
All right.
Yeah,
How
the
about
room
now?
volume is really low, if not non-existent.
Okay. Okay. Can you all hear me
I can
now?
hear
Is
you
this
now.
better?
We can hear you, but
Yes.
you're really faint.
Everyone, my name is Christabel Kamadu, and I am the Equity Analyst in CARB's Office of Environmental Justice, Tribal Affairs, and Border Relations. Thank you all so much for today's discussion. I would like to provide some announcements on upcoming events of interest for EJAC and public awareness. These upcoming events are listed in today's meeting agenda on CARB's EJAC webpage with links to the Gov deliveries sent out publicly with further information. Staff have pulled this information up on the screen as well in the table format so everyone can see what is upcoming. On June 9th, CARB announced that there is a new listserv for area source emissions inventory. Additionally, a workshop recap was posted from the May 28th workshop on area source inventories. On June 12th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m., CARB staff will be having an SB 1075 Harbor City community meeting focused on hydrogen development, deployment, and use. CARB is accepting research comments for fiscal year 2026 to 2027, funding through June 13th. On June 17th, from 1 to 3:30 p.m., CARB staff will be having a kickoff workshop on the fiscal year 2025 to 2026 Clean Transportation Incentives Funding Plan. There will also be an evening community meeting on clean transportation incentives for a cleaner California from 5 to 7 p.m. On June 18th, from 9 to 3 p.m., there will be a zero emissions showcase and a ride and drive event in Anaheim. On June 20th, from 9 to 12 p.m., there will be a funding plan work group for clean mobility investments. On June 26th and 27th, from 9 to 5 p.m., there will be a CARB board meeting. Pre-proposal solicitation for sustainable transportation and communities projects are due on July 14th. Lastly, on July 15th from 5 to 7 p.m., there will be an evening community meeting on clean transportation incentives for a cleaner California. Thank you, and I will now turn it back over to Jane.
Thank you. That takes us to our final item, which is next steps and closing remarks. I will turn it over to Martha Dina as the co-chair on today's meeting.
Right, folks, so clearly next steps are to finalize the resolution on building decarbonization and natural and working RANs. And so we have two work groups that will be working on finalizing them. I also think that we really need to take a close look at the presentation that we just heard, and we're going to check back with our, actually internally my own staff who sits, we are the co-chairs of the South LA 617 community and just want to verify how that input was collected. Because there may be some failure of communication, but I want to make sure that folks know we're going to be following up on that presentation and the input that's already been given by community, and continue to work with CARB to get more input from directly impacted communities. And our co-chair, Catherine, I think will be back for the July meeting. And that's all my closing remarks for today.
Thank you, Martha Dina. I'll turn it over to CARB staff.
Martha Dina, this is Radhika. Quick question. What does the follow-up look like, the follow-up that you're mentioning? Does that look like another discussion during the EJAC, or do you want to meet with the 1137
I think I'd like to meet, yes, I'd like to work with the 1137 team and help organize a meeting to bring more of our community and technical experts that have been working on urban drilling for many, many years to provide feedback. And we might bring in some other folks who actually have worked on some of the reporting that's happening through the South Coast around chemicals that are used at drilling.
Okay. Hi, Martha Dina. This is Ashley from CARB. I did have one other kind of next step to add to the hopper as a follow-up from Chanel Fletcher's opening remarks at the beginning of the meeting. We do also have a cap and trade resolution that was amended from the November 2024 version. Since Dr. Catherine is out on sabbatical, she did provide that draft to CARB. So the goal would be after this meeting to follow up with the subgroup on that draft resolution with the amended language. So just wanted to flag that as well. So we have building decarb, we have natural and working lands, and we have cap and trade, all planning for additional changes ahead of the July 17th EJAC meeting.
Yes, and if I know that sometimes it's like herding cats with us. So maybe we can, I can meet with CARB staff about getting reminders out to the committee and just keeping us on track. Because, you know, we leave here and our other lives take over, and then you're like a week from the meeting and you realize we've got to do a lot of prep. But we have a lot of prep to do. So, you know, we are going to need, all of the members are going to sort of need to pay attention to email and respond quickly so that we're ready for the July meeting with finals and because we're gonna be approving 3 resolutions, and cap and trade, building decarbonization, and I'm just natural and working lands.
Thank you, Martha Dina. And just a quick clarification too, from what Matt had mentioned earlier, it sounded like for the natural and working lands subgroup that there was a goal to have comments solidified by Friday, June 20th. So I just want to emphasize that. And we'll be sure here as CARB staff to follow up with folks on the proposed changes that we heard today and continue to coordinate with Matt Holmes on that.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. I'm still here. And, you know, of course, we would also benefit from any sort of correction from staff when they look at those resolutions and say, oh, that's categorically inaccurate, Matt. Don't recommend this to the board. It would be helpful to have technical expertise from the state to support our request of the board eventually. But I'll work with you on getting that subquorum group together and getting the final version, at least our version. Thank you.
Thank you. Did we lose the room again, or are we adjourning?
Nope.
Can you hear?
Okay, we're still here.
Okay, good. So 3 resolutions plus meeting notes also. Just adding that to our list.
All right, I believe that concludes next steps and closing remarks. That takes us to the end of the meeting. We apologize for the technical difficulties today. We note that that is very unusual for this room. We appreciate AV sticking with us and trying to troubleshoot real time, but it will be a priority to get that resolved as soon as possible. Thank you for hanging in there. To everybody on the virtual meeting, we appreciate it. The time is now 3:14, and that concludes our meeting today.
Thanks. Have a
Thank
great
you,
evening.
everyone. Bye-bye.